Good morning. Welcome to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. John Cornell, Shane Matthews on a Wednesday.
Yep.
Morning.
What a night. What a night last night.
Was it a great night for you, JC?
It was. A lot of things happened for me, QB. How did your night go, first of all?
Wasn't bad.
Just kind of relaxed last night?
Didn't do a whole lot.
So last night I'm wearing that Florida sweatshirt.
It's
athletic
a T-shirt.
Well, Florida softball
T-shirt. Not a sweatshirt.
Well, it's got the nice polyester. Anyway, I was
would be
wearing
called
that.
Dry Fit.
Dry fit. And I was wearing that.
Who
exact
sponsored you
same-
today?
Yeah, well, I'll get to this
You have
in a
no
minute.
sponsor.
I'll get to this in a minute here. This is there's an issue with this, but so I'm wearing that outfit you got on right there last night, and I'm playing this guy in a heated match, a singles match in tennis over there at Hale Clay Courts, and I'm down 5-4 in both the first and second set. By golly, I came back and won them 7-5. That's called you just don't quit.
Never give up.
I was down 4-2 in the second set and rallied hard and took it 7-5. The guy,
Way to be a competitor,
The guy didn't
JC.
want to talk to after the match. So
Way to compete.
I was battling.
Did you wear your Stan
Wearing my
Smiths?
Florida softball. No, I was wearing my Florida
No, I'm
softball.
talking about your
shirt.
shoes, your Stan Smith
I had Adidas
shoes.
shirts. Yep, I did. Now the issue with this is that I think I left it in the dryer and it shrunk.
No, I'm not talking about that. It has nothing on it.
True.
You have no sponsorship.
I got Bevo today. I got the old school Bevo. But by the way, I've got a rule about my hats. I will not wear an SEC competitor hat. In other words, I will not wear another team in the SEC unless it's like something special happens. Because generally here we are in Gator country, right? But I don't mind wearing a Big 12 hat. I will wear. I could do that. You're right. I could say Alabama hats are valid. They are. They qualify, but the rest of the conference, I will not mess with them. And then let's say something like Mississippi State wins the Final Four or something like that. Then I'd do that. But this thing shrunk, and it is not.
You shouldn't have put it in the dryer.
I don't feel comfortable, QB, so I need help with that. But outside of that, a big night last night in college basketball. I guess we could start with that, or we could go with the Gator baseball team breaking the record.
Let's do both. Gator baseball sets a record. They start the season 12-0. They beat the Owls of Florida Atlantic last night. It's regardless of how good you are in baseball, they play 56, 58 regular season games.
That's a lot.
You usually lose 10, 12, more than that sometime.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to even start the season at 12-0, because like you said, we usually don't win these midweek games.
Yeah. But they're playing them hard, man.
But they're it seems like this team has kind of that it factor. You know what I mean? It's early in the season still, but they're finding ways to win games. Last night around the SEC in basketball, a crucial game up in Columbia, South Carolina. South Carolina wins 83-71. It's still not over, but this was a game. I watched a lot of this game. South Carolina went on a 24-3 run. Mississippi State went on this long run to get it close.
Yeah.
Just a game of runs. Then your team, who definitely is going to be in the NIT,
God.
Alabama loses to
NIT.
Vanderbilt 87-79.
It's just awful.
And then on senior night at Rupp Arena,
loses at home to Vanderbilt.
the Tennessee Volunteers come from 17 points down to beat Kentucky 81-73.
So let's talk about that game. Fulkerson was the guy that hurt Florida over the weekend. He comes in last night with 27 points. The Vols were down 11 at half. I think you said 17 in the first half. They outscore Kentucky on senior night at Rupp Arena 50-31. They outscored that team by 19 points in the second half alone with that crowd. And I don't know. This is the kind of team Tennessee, I'm telling you, you get a little hot this time of year, and I got another one for you. But this Tennessee team goes into the SEC tournament with absolutely nothing to lose, right? And you just don't know. They're going to be playing it in Nashville. They may have some fans there. They may not. But the point is they probably will, and they could be really, really dangerous. Another team that I think that's going to go into its conference tournament with absolutely no chance to go to the NCAA tournament unless they win their conference tournament, and who has been quietly putting up some serious points in their last two games is North Carolina. And North Carolina is a team that's lost some very close games that they very well should have or could have or should have won. And last night they buried somebody. Over the weekend they buried Syracuse. And I just say, in that zone defense, they still scored a lot of points. And I'm just going to tell you this. In the ACC tournament, It's wide open if you ask me, because even though FSU, Louisville, and Duke are separate from maybe the rest of the league, it would not surprise me one iota to see North Carolina beat one of those three teams and move forward. And with momentum, that could be a team that could really hurt these bubble teams or these last four in teams who are hoping to get in, because a team like North Carolina or Tennessee, if they were to unbelievably win their conference tournament, would bump off a team from the bubble.
Well, Tennessee's not out of it. They don't have to win the conference tournament, JC. If they
You don't
win,
think so?
They win Saturday. I'm not sure they play, and then maybe win one or two games with their strength of schedule.
Their strength of schedule. So you think they could sneak in?
Yeah,
as a
South Carolina's still in the
We
hunt.
just haven't talked about Tennessee much this year, and when we do bring them up, it's kind of like they're just playing it out. But Rick Barnes is a very good coach, and he's getting these kids to play hard. And this Fulkerson guy, man, I mean, the thing about Tennessee that I love, the way they protect the lane on defense. And when we get to tournament time in basketball, QB, you know as well as I do that two things that travel are both defense and have a cold night in a one-and-done scenario, which is what tournament games are, then you can find yourself on the outside looking in after the game is over. And Tennessee, here they are, 81-73. They bomb Kentucky in the second half, but they play a very physical game, as you have mentioned, and they love to own the lane. Those coaches like Rick Barnes and some of these others, they emphasize physical play, and that kind of stuff travels.
It does, but I think the most important thing when it comes tournament time is guard play.
Yeah.
I mean, your point guard is your quarterback.
Yeah,
if he plays well, you win.
He has to play well. Tennessee, big win last night. I'll tell you, another team that had a big win last night in college basketball was your Michigan State Spartans. And QB, before we go to our first break, I'm going to have a little bracketology for you.
Did you see how far from behind they came?
It's unbelievable. They were getting blown out in the first half. They were down 46-31 at halftime to Pennsylvania State.
It was worse than that before halftime.
It was worse than that. They cut it to 15 by the half, but then in the second half they outscored Pennsylvania State 48-25. They scored 48 points in the second half, just like Tennessee got 50 in the second half at Kentucky last night. Michigan State gets 48 points in the second half. Both teams now 21-9, and this I think is really helpful for Michigan State seeding in the big dance, because I think when you look at the fact that they are that they are second in the Big Ten, I think, behind Maryland. Michigan State, we've talked about how
Maryland lost last night at Rutgers.
And that's another team that's going the opposite direction than, say, the Michigan State and the Tennessees. Here's Maryland. They lost their third out of 4 games. They easily could have lost 4 straight games here in the last week or so, because Minnesota had them beaten. And Minnesota failed to make free throws, and Maryland hit a buzzer beater. But Maryland goes to Rutgers, which is kind of a tough place to play. It is in the Big Ten. It's hard to believe that Rutgers is a Big Ten team. But here's Rutgers, 78-67 over Maryland. And, Rutgers dominated that game. Maryland was just playing poorly right now, so they're having a little bit of issues as they go forward, but they're going to be a very high seed, maybe one of the top 3 seeds. Oh, well, they'll be – I got bracketology for you.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. Yeah, you're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System studios. At 8:30, we're going to have Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show, longtime writer, knows his sports, his Gator sports. Tonight in the SEC, some big games. LSU's at Arkansas, A&M's at Auburn, Missouri at Ole Miss, and obviously Florida plays a big game at what's that place called?
Where?
The Stegman Coliseum.
Yeah, that's in Georgia, 10,000 capacity. It's one of the smaller arenas in the entire conference.
They'll be packed tonight, I bet.
But they'll have a
senior
good
night for them.
Well, and it's Florida, right? The Gators are coming to town. Everybody hates Florida up in North Georgia, except in Atlanta. And Georgia has a guy that can light it up, Edwards, and we saw what he was capable of when they played down here in the first half. He dominated the game in the first half, but then they just went to sleep and Florida buried them. So I look forward to this game because Florida is going to be tested. This is going to be a very tough game to win for Florida, I think.
Yeah, we got a text here on the Titan MR text line. Daryl says, "Good morning, guys. Who are y'all's dark horse in the SEC tournament?"
Well, I think we just talked about.
You're going to jump on the Tennessee bandwagon because they've won 2 in a row.
Are you telling me that this guy Fulkerson isn't for real?
Well, he's playing well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been on the team all year. He's playing well at the right time.
That's right.
I really think Mississippi State again. I'm not getting off their bandwagon. It's a shame they don't have a legitimate point guard, but Mississippi State. And I do like South Carolina. I like their style of play. Frank Martin's kind of changed his philosophy a little bit. It's always been defense, defense, defense.
Yeah.
but they're very offensive oriented right now, and they have some guys that can put the ball in the basket.
I like those two picks. I mean, South Carolina, Mississippi State, they're the same team to me.
Yeah, I mean, because right now, there's 4 teams that are definitely in the tournament from the SEC: Florida, Auburn, LSU, and Kentucky. They're all penciled in. Maybe a 5th gets in, maybe a 6th. Who knows?
Well, you mentioned Tennessee as a potential 5th, and of course, you've been talking about Mississippi State. So if they go to 5 or 6, those could be the 2, and then of course,
you can't. I mean, Arkansas's still in the hunt too. If Isaiah Joe's back, they're playing a little bit better.
Will he be able to come back by then?
He's been playing the last couple of weeks.
Oh, so he's back.
Won.
I thought you said that he was out.
He was, but that's when they lost.
He's been back in Arkansas basketball.
Yeah. Well, just stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Well, I mean, Woo Pig. I don't know that SEC tournament in Nashville is going to be quite an event to go to. I'm looking forward to seeing it, watching it. I wish I could go to it, but I can't. So QB, we have, and then you talk about Alabama. We've talked about them, number 2 scoring team in the country. But
here's the problem with Alabama.
Also turn the ball over.
Yeah, but
when you have 80 possessions, I guess it's okay to turn over.
That's not their problem. Their problem, JC, is you got a guy playing with a cast on his hand, who's one of the best players on the team.
Yeah.
No, Petty hasn't played.
So he's not even playing.
No, he's not even playing. He's got a dislocated elbow.
What kind
of fan?
Because I've given up. They're NIT bound, bro. I've told you this from day one.
So you're a fair weather fan.
No, I'm just I got other things to do than watch an NIT team play basketball.
No, but Petty's been out for 3 games now.
Yeah.
He has
he's
dislocated elbow.
They're not going anywhere. It's too bad. But I like this guy, Oates. I do. I think Alabama basketball is on the
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
On the other side of the moon there.
Technical difficulties there.
We're back, baby.
What we need to do here is...
we got Buddy Martin coming on, hopefully, in about 10 or 15 minutes. And
in the meantime, Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Nike, Palmetto Moon, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the head ball coach's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate.
Hopefully that'll be tonight. Georgia, big game on, what is it, SEC? Or what?
I'm not sure. It's a 7 o'clock start. I don't know what.
I'll tell you.
If we're on ESPN or ESPN2 or SEC Network.
Big deal. Big game.
Big game. It is a big game. I think it's going to be a great crowd there. They're playing. They've played extremely well the last couple of weeks.
Well, they have, and Anthony Edwards is, as you have said, the top pick of the NBA draft upcoming, and they are 15-14 at the bottom of the conference. But, and there's a but to this, Georgia is a team that is capable. They scored 99 points last Saturday against the Hogs at home. So that must have been up and down the court. They
get up and down the floor.
Yeah, they do, and they beat Vandy and Auburn. They beat Auburn at home 65-55. So they've won 3 out of their last 4 games. So they had some losses there early part of February, but they've played better. They only lost by 4 at South Carolina. For some reasons, Georgia is scoring a lot of points.
Because that's their style of play. It's exactly how Alabama plays.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a real challenge for the Gators tonight. I'd like to see how that goes. By the way, speaking of challenges, we had one last night with Jackie Spreads, who came in and debuted and picked 2 games. He had the under in the Michigan State-Penn State game of 144 points. Well, that clearly did not happen. And then, so he's 0-1 there. And then poor Jackie had Maryland getting a few at Rutgers, and they got beat rather handily. So Jackie begins his career here on Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning at an 0-2 mark. However, the good news is that your co-host, JC here, took Iowa State +6, and they lost by exactly 6, 77-71. But I also took the Texas Longhorns, and they won outright against Oklahoma. They were catching 6.5 points. So my career has begun at 1-0-1. So I am ahead of Jackie Spreads right now. We will keep up with this.
We will keep track of it.
Throughout the year.
Taylor, are we good to go with our play of the day? Yeah, I would like to go. We got two plays of the day. And let's go to the first play of the day, which actually happened last night with the Texas Longhorns. The Texas Longhorns, and our play of the day is brought to you by Area Rug Masters, your number one choice for all of your area rug cleaning services. Texas has won 5 in a row, and it was imperative that they go on the road and win against Oklahoma. And what happened is Oklahoma missed 2 free throws, and then Texas goes down and hits a last-second three-point shot that banked. No. He banked it in.
And
there it is right there.
Matt Coleman III, who scored 21 points for Bevo. There he is. And he told Royce Ham Jr., his teammate, in the huddle during the timeout before that play that he was going to go ahead and win the game.
He did.
He just said that. He said, Royce, I'm going to go ahead and win the game. And so he knew he was going to get the ball, and he hits that shot called glass. And they beat Oklahoma. So Texas gets the upset win, keeps them somewhat alive, I guess. They're third in the
And our other play of the day, which was outstanding, and this happened the other night.
Oh, I love this one.
Big Thomas Snacks Lee is a senior manager for Jackson State, and they entered him into the game when Jackson State had the lead, and he hits a three-point shot from the timeline, about a 30-footer, and the gym goes crazy.
Look at
and these are stories that are outstanding.
Snacks.
Big Snacks. Big Snacks has a very tight uniform. It's a great nickname for him, Snacks.
So there he is right there. There's Snacks. There he is. Look at him. There he is. There's Snacks. Go get him, Snacks. And Snacks hit a shot, and the Jackson State arena erupts in elation. And did they win?
Yeah, they won. They were hit. That's why they put him in, JC. He's a manager.
So
he's not even on the team. You don't put him in when the game's on the line.
Yeah, you're right.
He was out of hand. The game was out of hand. The Jackson State moves on in their tournament. We have a Facebook Live question comment. It's brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred personal injury attorneys. And Butterball says, Snacks is the man. And Snacks definitely is the man. I love that kind of stuff.
That jersey, man, that jersey.
Well, his nickname fits him, Snacks.
Right, but the jersey didn't fit him, but that's okay.
Well, did you see him? I don't know if they had a jersey.
It kind of reminds me of the sweatshirt I'm wearing.
Yeah, y'all are very similar built.
I don't know about that, but good for him, man. He'll never forget that moment. Neither will the alumni at Jackson State. I mean, it's a great game.
Well, I think the players enjoyed it more because
did.
Managers have a lot to do with programs.
They're very important.
All right, we're going to take another time out here, and we're going to come back, and we're going to be joined by the one and the only.
Well, I was going to do the bracketology before we go to the one and only.
Okay, well, let's do that.
Because the one and only is going to take us, Buddy Martin, going to take us.
Show's kind of discombobulated today.
Well, we had a little issues with the technology, but technology is always evolving, QB. Bracketology, here we go. Number 1 seeds. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 seeds, according to
simple.
JC. Well, just see if you agree, and then you can tell me if this is the same that you have. I have Kansas as the overall number 1 seed in the country. I have Baylor as the number 2 overall seed in the country, but a number 1 seed. And that goes with 2 teams out west, San Diego State and Gonzaga. Agree? All right, 2 seeds. 2 seeds, Florida State out of the ACC, Seton Hall out of the Big East, Maryland out of the Big Ten, even though they're struggling right now with 3 out of 4 losses, and the Dayton Flyers, who have a very big game with the Rhode Island Rams, who are on the bubble. The Dayton Flyers could be a 2 seed. I got them out of the Midwest. You like that? 3 seeds in bracketology. Before the bracketology really starts, I have Louisville out of the ACC. You can switch them with FSU if the next couple games go south for FSU. But Louisville's 3. I got Kentucky still out of the SEC as a 3 seed. Creighton out of the Big East. They're the second team in the Big East. I got them as a 3 seed. And Michigan State, the second team in the Big Ten. I have them as a 3 seed. What do you think of all that?
I think so. I think FSU has a chance to get on the one line, though, if they win the ACC regular season and win the ACC tournament.
They'd have to win that, and I would follow you there. They have a big game coming up, though, I think, with Louisville. So is that right, Louisville?
I don't follow their schedule.
Well, I know, but you follow basketball. You're supposed to know those things. But I'll tell you that Florida State and Louisville are really close and could be either 2 or 3 or 3 or 2 or whatever it is by the time the ACC tournament is over. I guess the team that plays better in that tournament will do better. Also, real quick, a quick note for the NFL before we take our break. Dallas has made an offer to Dak Prescott for $33 million.
$33 million.
$33 million, and
for how many years?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a $33 million per year offer.
Per year?
Well, I mean, $33 million.
He ain't. That's crazy.
No, it's $33 million offer, right? And the thing about him is that Russell Wilson is getting $36 million. Okay, so Russell Wilson gets $36 million. Did you know that since 2016, Dak and Russell Wilson have the same number of wins in the NFL since 2016? They both have won 40 games as quarterback of their team. So I don't know. I find that interesting, but that's Dallas's offer to Dak.
Interesting. All right, we're going to take a timeout here. We're going to come back. We'll be joined by Buddy Martin. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
Time out! Hey, time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Gators Dockside, wings, ribs, seafood, and beer. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Radware Promotional Materials, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker M.M. Parish, Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Miapa Latin Cafe, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Okita America Martial Arts and After School, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Wrap Spot, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebration Primary Care, Center State Bank. If
you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. John Cornell, Shane Matthews. Hey, folks, at Center State Bank, we put business first. We put the largest community bank in the state of Florida. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Come in and experience the Center State difference. To learn more, visit centerstatebank.com. Center State Bank, member FDIC.
So
we're going to go.
Our issues
for it's Cox Communications, folks. They need to get their internet service
Cox, get
corrected.
out of Bedrock, come to the Century. And by the way, that contract offer for Dak was an annual offer. Russell Wilson gets $36 million per year annually.
What's crazy is I can think of 10 other quarterbacks I'd rather have before Russell and Dak.
But again, they have the same number of wins since 2016.
And what does that matter?
Well,
there's other quarterbacks that have more wins.
That's how agents.
But quarterbacks.
You know this why that matters. That's how agents.
I understand,
compare.
but there's quarterbacks that have more wins than them that are making less. Is my point. Okay, we're going to go to the Titan MRI hotline now. We're joined by Buddy Martin, host of the Buddy Martin Show, Gator Bait. Buddy's got his hands in all kinds of things. Buddy, welcome to the program. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. And how is my favorite sports morning show? I posted that earlier that you guys had the best program around this area, and I listening to you two.
Well, we have great guests like yourself, and certainly that adds so much to our show, and it helps. Certainly, buddy, going into the spring here, I wanted to talk a little Gator football with you as we kick it off. Orange and Blue game is now April the 18th. Spring practice is coming. Do you have any initial thoughts about spring practice? I know it's kind of difficult to talk much about it because it hasn't happened yet, and sometimes you don't get the information you may need, and it may not be that important anyway. But what do you think about that, and what do you think about what we could look forward to, if anything, on April 18th?
Well, I mean, we all know it's spring football, and a lot of people say, what difference does it make? But it's what we got.
Yeah.
My late friend Jones Ramsey, he was the SID at Texas many years ago. He used to say there are two sports at Texas, football and spring football.
Yeah.
And it's not quite like that now, but spring football will tell us a few things. I think the development of that offensive line is going to be key right now, getting a look at some new players, which, of course, is always a fun thing to do. I'm anxious to see some of the guys that are coming aboard here, the early enrollees. And I don't think we'll see anything we didn't expect to see from the skill positions, namely quarterback. I am glad to see that the rest of the world is finally waking up to the fact that Kyle Trask has the numbers and the record to be ranked as an all-SEC quarterback at this point in time. And I believe after talking to a few people around the league, including Tony Barnhart and other people, that people are really starting to think, wait a minute, this guy's got numbers. He's done it. And I think Kyle Trask is not going to necessarily, take contact, but he will be put on display and with these new receivers. And by the way, and Shane, you know this, you just don't lose four experienced senior receivers like they've had. Terrific bunch of guys that I think are as good a group as I've seen in senior leadership without it having an impact. But I'm excited about the players coming back and the new ones.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think they lost some great production and great teammates at the receiver position, but they're excited about the young guys that they have coming in. Buddy, when you're on a lot of national shows, what's the thought process on the Gators kind of going into next season? I think the way the schedule lays out, the way we've ended the season, or actually had two great seasons under Dan Mullen, as you mentioned, the year Kyle Trask, having your quarterback come back. He's done a great job in the transfer portal. Kind of the national thought process of how the Gators may be going into the national scene next year.
Well, it's funny. We're kind of here laser focused on the Gators, but around Georgia, they're talking about different things. Georgia's worried about having to play in Tuscaloosa in September, which is going to be a huge game, obviously, and development of a new quarterback and new offensive coordinator. Of course, everybody thinks Saban's going to do it again. He'll be back this year, and it'll be same old Alabama. Florida's getting some notice, but one of the things I have begun to notice is that a lot of so-called experts are beginning to put Florida in the mix when it comes down to the Final Four. And one of them is Urban Meyer. I know he's coached here, and he might have a little bit of an orange and blue hue in what he says, but he's a straight shooter. I had him on the show Monday, and we talked about him having to pick a team as a breakthrough. Each one of the guys on the show, the Big Noon Show, had to pick a breakthrough team. And Dan said he picked Florida. Urban said he picked Florida and Dan. And he said because he's been doing this a while now, he's building a really good team. He likes what Florida's doing with their offense. He knows the defense is going to be good. And he says, quote unquote, in the column I'm writing right now for this next issue of Gatorade, by the way, if I can plug it.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Media.com. Log on and subscribe. I'd love to have you as a customer. In this column, he talks about Dan, his development, and why Florida, quote unquote, could be there at the end. And he said it gets down to injuries, staying healthy, and if he is, he thinks Florida's going to have a shot at being a Final Four. So that's kind of new. That means that's that next step that Florida needs to take to be, where we think you ought to be after two terrific seasons, going to 25-5 and 2 New Year's Six victories, and just a step away from where they need to be. And we'll see. It's a hard step to make, though.
Well, two areas that I I think about when it comes to qualifying and going through a long, hard season and qualifying for the championship game, the conference championship game, meaning beating Georgia and, of course, winning the division, is that Florida has to be good at the linebacker position and, of course, the running back position and obviously the quarterback position. But those two other spots, the running backs and the linebackers, a lot of folks have asked me about that as I walk around town or if I go to lunch and somebody says, hey, look, we saw you on the show, blah, blah, blah. Tell us about, where Florida could be weak. Well, do you think that is an area of concern, or do you think Florida's got it covered?
I think the running backs are going to be good. I'm anxious to see Lingard transfer from Miami,
Yeah.
5-star, guy that I want to see it now. The other thing is whether or not Florida gets this prize recruit coming up here in a couple of weeks. He'll be making a visit, 5-star running back. And also, don't overlook the guy who Damian Pierce. Damian Pierce is a pretty good back, and he catches the ball well out of the backfield. He might be next in line. I don't think, depending upon what we see on the hoof, now we're just guessing here, when we see these new guys and who will be other early enrollees, I like where they are, and I think Dan is pretty comfortable where he is with this. So let's wait and see. I think it's more the offensive line than it is anything else. And Zach Evans, who's the kid that signed with Georgia originally, he's taking a visit to Florida here.
Oh, soon. From Houston, the kid from Houston.
Yeah, he'll be here this weekend, I think, or next weekend. I'm not sure.
Right. And I don't like to talk about guys I've never seen except on video.
Well,
but what they tell me, this guy is supposed to be the real deal. So I don't think, JC, that running back will be a major issue, especially if they sign Evans. And I do like Pierce a lot. And listen, if Lingard is what they say he is, he was a 5-star. I think they'll be all right. They should be able to run the ball. They got to get the offensive line fixed, though.
Buddy, you have a lot of recruiting guys, and y'all talk recruiting on your shows here and there. There's been talk about how Dan Mullen and his staff, they aren't great recruiters, blah, blah, blah. Well, he hires Tim Brewster, who's done a tremendous job in a short period of time since he's been here, only a couple of weeks. But I think where people are missing the boat is Dan Mullen's figured out the transfer portal. Okay, he's adding players that are 4 and 5 stars through the transfer portal that are experienced players, older players that are going to help your team win right away. Talk a little bit about what you're hearing out there about the recruiting process and how he's kind of taken over that transfer portal.
Well, no doubt on the transfer portal. You and I have talked on my show about it several times and how he was able to bring that, to really make that a strength of his team. To get the players he's gotten out of the portal and get the contributions he's gotten from them, he's smart. What difference does it make if you get a recruit and he stays 3 years and leaves his 4th year, or you get a guy with 3 years left? Like they have had some terrific players out of the portal, and he obviously has done it well. Dan does one thing well, and this is what Urban said too was important to him. Evaluation is everything in recruiting. That's the first step. You got to know what you need, what you want, and say, does this guy fit my system? And I know you and I have talked about recruiting. Sometimes he just doesn't want that 5-star because he's not going to fit here, or whatever the case may be. Now, having said that, yeah, you're right. There was a knock on Mullen. Why, I don't know. I guess because the guy was at Mississippi State, and had to really struggle to get everything he could get. But remember what he did at Mississippi State, had that 5 or 6 week run at number 1 in the country and did pretty well. I think he's a good recruiter, maybe not an elite recruiter, but here's the deal. It's changed just because, like you said, it's not just about the 5 stars anymore. It's about building a roster. When you talk about building a roster, Mullen is one of the best at putting together a combination of graduate transfer portal players, bringing back the development of the teams, the players from last year, and recruiting. Now, look at the star system, which none of us like, but what 2021, according to all the rankings, the number 1 team in recruiting is the Florida Gators. They're ranked number 1 for 2021. So I don't know how you get out of that Dan can't recruit.
I agree. We're speaking with Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show. You can check him out on Facebook Live, also from Gator Bait. Hey, Buddy, you and I last summer, we weren't drinking the Georgia Kool-Aid. I still ain't drinking it. They had Jake Fromm, an experienced quarterback, but I thought they were terrible on offense. Yes, they won the SEC East, but I think if you thought they were good on offense, you weren't watching football. It doesn't matter. They were not good on offense. They played one good game, and that was against the Gators. Other than that, they were not very good on offense.
Pretty good against Auburn there.
So my question is, they hire a new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken. They bring in this graduate transfer, Jamie Newman, out of Wake Forest, who's a good player, but look, he's not the next coming. Trust me. Why is there still so much hype in Georgia? I guess it's going to be there until Florida beats them.
Yeah, like the old cliche goes, Ric Flair said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. They've got to beat Georgia. If you look at that, I'll answer your other question in a second. But when you look at that, you got to find a way and to go back to Coach Purdy's playbook, and you guys were able to do it, 11 out of 12 years Steve was. And that was not a problem for Spurrier. Now, all of a sudden, Kirby, who I think is a really good coach, by the way, but can he finish? That's the question. And when you don't do it for a few years, you get a reputation. If Kirby doesn't get it done this year, now people are going to say, well, Kirby just can't win the big game. That's how it goes. And you get a reversal of fortunes going there in that situation. I think Georgia has obviously recruited really great, probably better than anybody in the country, maybe except Saban. But right there with Saban, and Georgia is going to be a force. But Georgia hasn't done it. We didn't buy the Kool-Aid last year, and I'm not buying the Kool-Aid this year. I just don't think they're there yet. And so we'll see. And I want to see what they put together this spring. Look, Jamie Newman's never taken a snap in the SEC, all right? He may be a really good quarterback, but he's got a lot to learn. Hey, have you seen Todd Monken's offense? I don't know much about it. I don't. He didn't light my fire.
He's going to get thrown into the fire in September as he travels to Tuscaloosa. So that's not going to be easy. And we talked about, we mentioned the schedule. Florida has a favorable schedule if you look at it on paper right now. 3 of their first 4 SEC games are at home. And then the Western, the rotation team is Mississippi under Lane Kiffin. So, buddy, you would have to think that given the schedule on paper right now, the only road game at Tennessee in the first half of the season in the conference sets up pretty well for Florida. Is LSU, a team with all the people that they've lost, still going to be the kind of team that will challenge, you think, in the SEC West? Do you know anything about them with all those guys that they lost?
Well, first, Tennessee. I'm hearing a lot of talk about Tennessee's back, Tennessee's there.
Yeah.
Tennessee hadn't done ditch yet, as far as I'm concerned, but they could be a problem September 26th. That's a game that on the road, I think Florida wins that game. I don't worry about South Carolina, obviously, and then you get into LSU. I went back and looked at my notes, and which I don't usually do, for the entire LSU game last year. And I just went through them, and I took rather copious notes that game. And I had forgotten just how close that game was. I knew it was close.
Yeah.
But the score skewed it a little bit. They got beat by 2 touchdowns. Here's the deal. Florida has tied the game, has the ball, and is moving it for a touchdown. It's about to score, and then Trask gets a turnover. And then that never did.
It. Yeah.
But they were still challenging at the end. So they played really head-to-head with the national champions. As to how good they're going to be, I think there'll be a team that'll get their 8, 9, maybe 10 wins, whatever. I don't think LSU, because great athletes, of course, I don't think LSU is going to be able to beat Alabama this year. And so I think LSU will be a tough game, but it's in Gainesville, which is good for Florida. Mm-hmm. And I think Florida's in good shape leading up to Georgia. I think they got a chance to go into Georgia October 31st.
Yeah.
The cocktail party is going to be one of the biggest games we've had in a long time around here.
No doubt about it. We're speaking with Buddy Martin here in the Crime Prevention Security System studios on the Titan MRI hotline. We got a text on the Titan MRI text line. And I know you've answered this before, but Susan wants to know, Buddy, how was it to write books for Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier?
Well, that's a great question. You got a couple hours?
Well, I've got a one. Well, go ahead. Sorry. I don't want to.
I'm sorry, John.
No. Excuse me. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to tell you something after. Go ahead. Answer that question.
Yeah. Well, there were 2 different kind of books. One of them was the first book was a biography, which means I wrote the book after interviewing everybody. Mm-hmm. That was exhaustive. I did a lot of research on that book. Talked to 50-some players, former players, whatever, Urban, and I was really fortunate that Urban let me in behind the scenes. I've never done that. To get to go in and be behind the scenes and sort of go to the locker room, go at halftime and hear what the coaches say, go eat with the team. On Friday nights, which Urban calls the best night in football, going to the hotel with the teams, talking to all the coaches, running on the field, by the way, for the Tennessee game to get experience that. So it was a full-blown experience for me as the writer to kind of get that. Unfortunately, it turned out that the Aaron Hernandez story kind of sort of blinded the book a little bit, but there's more to that story than meets the eye. And someday we'll talk about it. But I was proud of that book because I think it was one of the few books that took you inside of a program, and I was honored to be able to do that and asked by Urban to write it. Coach Spurrier took him 25 years. We started working on a book idea when you were in school. And Steve and I talked about it after a quarterback club meeting, and we decided we might do a book on the Gators in 1992, I believe it was. And we started working on it, and Steve backed out. He says, "No, I think we're going to have a pretty good team this year. I don't want to do it right now." So I said, "Okay." So I went ahead and wrote a few little books on my own about the Gators. Then 4 years ago, I'm doing my show in the afternoon. My phone rings, and it's Spurrier, and I have to pick in a break. I picked it up. I said, "Coach, I'm at the station." He said, "I got one question for you." He said, "Remember that book we were going to do a long time ago?" I said, "Yeah." "How'd you like to do it?" I said, "Okay, I would like to. I'll call you back and we'll do it." And we spent a lot of time with an agent and shopping it and all that sort of stuff, and wrote Head Ball Coach, which was an autobiography, which means there's Steve's words.
Yeah.
So I had to get him down, saying I have to tell you precisely like he said them.
Right.
If there was a word or something out of place he didn't like, or in fact he questioned or whatever, which he did, we had to go through it a little bit. But proud, honored to be asked to do it, proud of the final product, and I was honored to write those two books on Florida's two coaches that are, the greatest of all time. Those two at Florida.
And I'll tell you, buddy, if you're up for it, I got one more idea for you. Since you write such good stuff, how about from the gridiron to the courtroom or to the island with Brad Culpepper? Because we talked to him last week, and he seems extremely interesting to me with all of the things he's done off the field. You could probably sell a bunch of those.
Well, he is he's a very interesting guy and a great Gator.
Yeah.
I've already sworn twice I was not writing any more books on Florida. I've now done 5. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I might have my quota done there, but I'm honored. I mean, I think that Brad's an interesting subject. Here's the key. My friend likes to say, anybody can write a book. The key is to sell it.
Yes, that means people want to read it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
But before we let you,
luckily, I don't have to sell it when the publisher gives us money up front.
That's true.
We get our money there. But I tell you, the book business is tough right now.
Yeah.
We're starting on a major change. Sometimes I wonder how much people read.
Right.
But I'm still going to crank them out one of these days. And Shane Matthews has probably got a book in him someplace too. So.
Buddy, last thing before we let you go, give us your thoughts on this Gator basketball team. Can they make a run in the tournament?
Wow.
You have to ask me about that. I was on the show.
He was on a roll there.
And he said, and somebody said, "What do you make of the Gator basketball team?" And I said, "Confusing. Yeah. I'm very confused." I call on the old cliche to explain it about the little girl with the curl, a nursery rhyme. When she was good, she was very good, and when she was bad, she was very bad. And I don't get how a team can go up to Tennessee and do stone cold for 20 minutes after having lit up an opponent just a week before. It's about the shots falling, I guess, the matchups, whatever. This team looks like at 1 minute it could be an Elite 8 team, the next minute it's whether it's going to make the NIT or not. Mm-hmm. The disparities in how they play and what they do is amazing. I'm a Mike White fan. I don't put it at his feet, but when they go for long stretches and don't score, that's got to be the coach. You got to say, hey, you got to own that. And by the way, if I might, Cassidy Hill, a very fine reporter for Gator Bait, has done some research on that. And coming up this weekend, she's got a story gone through each one of the games and the 10-minute stretches where they can't throw it in the ocean and going to write about it. I don't think it'll solve it, but it is one of those issues. But you know what? Like Billy Donovan said, you only have to win 6 games to win it all. So if you can get hot at the right time. I think Florida is a great choice as an underdog. I would like them. I don't think the SEC tournament is that critical, but I like Florida as an underdog. I think they'll make the tournament, but how far they will go, I just don't know.
Buddy Martin Show on Facebook Live, and is it GatorBait.com?
GatorBait. Go to GatorBaitMedia.com.
GatorBaitMedia.com.
And hit subscribe, and you can then go on and you can buy a monthly subscription, or you can get yearly, which gives you everything we're doing, and we have a lot which we're debuting this year. And thanks for letting me say that. Thanks for letting me be on the show. And Shane, you're up with me next week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We appreciate you, buddy. Have a good weekend, my man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, guys.
That's Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show. Taylor, scroll down. There was a question there about Kerwin on the Facebook Live. Question brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred personal injury attorneys. Gary says, did Kerwin Bell ever join the football staff? Great show. It will be in a couple of weeks.
So there you have it. And you can count on that happening. That was a good interview with Buddy. I liked what he said about the football program, and the expectation levels are going to be sky high, probably as high as they've been in years, and for good reason, of course. But spring practice is about to start, so
yep. And scroll down. Pizza Bill had a question here on the Pound Hurt Facebook Live. What's for breakfast? Well, I was hoping Pizza Bill might bring us breakfast one day.
I think that's you sticking that idea in his ear right
yes,
now. I like that idea, QB. Good stuff, man. Good show. I mean, a little issue there with technology, but Cox Cable's to blame. But we have Buddy Martin to bring us home, and of course, tonight's a big night. We'll talk about it tomorrow for sure, and then go forward in the week with Kevin Carter.
Tomorrow, Kevin Carter, Super Bowl champ, Hall of Famer,
former Gator,
great guy, works for CBS Sports.
St. Louis Rams, and then on Friday we hope to have Brent Beard to wrap it all up for the week.
Yep, today's show is a wrap brought to you by WrapSpot. A vehicle wrap from WrapSpot will give your business years of brand recognition and increased sales. Call WrapSpot today. We'll see you tomorrow.